reasons why every Christian ought to pray every day. I did not make this stuff up. As I said before, I am an imitator, not an innovator. I don't want to reinvent Christianity. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to give you stuff that has helped me that I think is fantastic. This all comes from Denny Corle, pastor in Pennsylvania. He's done a lot of work, and this is from one of his college classes on prayer. I think this stuff is fantastic. I want to share that with you today. 8 reasons why every Christian ought to pray every day. Number 1, and we'll put these right on the screen so you can see it. Number 1, we are commanded to pray. 1 Thessalonians 5:17 says, pray without ceasing. And this is imperative. This is the imperative sense here. This is a command from God to pray without ceasing. So number 1, we are commanded to pray. Number 2, it will keep you from fainting. Praying every day will keep you from fainting. Luke 18:1 says, men ought always to pray and not to faint. A lot of times folks fall away from being right with God. They fall into backsliding, fall into sin, is because they don't pray. This will keep you from fainting. Number 3, Jesus set the example. Why every Christian ought to pray every day? Because we're supposed to be like Jesus. We're supposed to be more and more like Jesus. We're supposed to be getting closer to him every day, acting more and more like him every single day. If I'm to be like Jesus, I'm to follow his example. Luke 5:16 says that Jesus withdrew himself to pray. He literally left to go and pray. Sometimes you might need to leave somewhere and go and pray. Withdraw yourself to pray. Luke 6:12 says Jesus prayed all night. Sometimes you need to pray all night. Jesus set the example. Jesus, the Son of God, thought it was important that he had to pray all night. Luke 9:29 says, and as he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment was white and glistering. Did you know that your countenance could be changed if you would pray? Has your countenance been changed? Luke 11:1, the disciples came to Jesus and they said, teach us to pray. Now, Jesus would have been the best preacher in the world. They could have came to Jesus and said, Jesus, teach us to preach. Jesus, teach us how to live our lives. Teach us how to be godly. Jesus, teach us how to be clean. But they were impressed by Jesus' prayer life. They said, Jesus, teach us to pray. Number 4, it will help us to avoid temptation. Listen, if you have a prayer life that is right, you will avoid temptation. You'll be able to do that. Matthew 26:41, watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. Here's a quote from Brother Corle. He said, if we live constantly in temptation, we will not avoid sin. Remember the Lord's Prayer? Jesus said, lead us not into temptation. He didn't say lead us not into sin. He said, lead us not into temptation. Because if you live in temptation constantly, you will sin. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Don't put yourself in temptation's way. But prayer is going to help you avoid temptation. My prayer life and devotions cooled off because I got so busy with the work, said one pastor who failed and destroyed his ministry, destroyed his life. My prayer life and devotions cooled off because I got so busy with the work. What work? The work of God. This guy thought it was more important to do the work of God than to do the main things, prayer and reading his Bible. And he failed. He destroyed his life. Don't do that. Get into the Bible. Get into praying. Keep your devotions. Keep your prayer life. Your prayer life will help you to avoid temptation. Number 5 is our means of daily forgiveness. Why every Christian ought to pray every day. Number 5, it is our means of daily forgiveness. We need to be forgiven every day. Peter's feet were dirty. Peter's feet were dirty. He needed his feet washed by Jesus. Jesus washed his feet. Why do we need to be cleaned every day? Why do we need to be forgiven every day? Because the dirt we pick up in our daily walk needs to be cleaned. You can't just get forgiven of sins once a week. You need to have daily cleansing And this is your means. Prayer is your means of daily forgiveness. Number 6, why every Christian ought to pray every day. Number 6, because it glorifies God. Because it glorifies God. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, whatsoever you do, do all to the glory of God. And this is whether you get your prayer answered or not. We're to pray. It'll glorify God either way. We are to glorify God. Prayer glorifies God. Number 7, God answers prayers, and you need answers. Jeremiah 33:3 says, call unto me, and I will answer thee, and show thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. We need answers to prayer. Why should every Christian pray every day? Common sense, simple. We need to get our prayers answered. We need things. We've got problems. We've got things that happen here. We need to get our prayers answered. Number 8, there is a need for laborers. Matthew 9:38, pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. We are commanded to pray. We're commanded to pray for laborers, more workers, more folks doing the work of God. We're to pray for that. These are 8 reasons why every Christian ought to pray every day.